words are not adequate to really describe the person that Kathrine is. When I first met Kathrine, she was the very first talk I went to. I've been connected with her through the Juice Plus Corporation, and she was the very first speaker I ever heard. And I remember feeling that I just had to stay after and meet her, because the sharing from her heart was so pure and authentic, and I just wanted to be a part. I wanted somehow to connect with that goodness. And so over time, I was blessed to learn more and more from her, not just in business, but in faith and relationships and serving and parenting. And many of you have known Kathrine and seen her in environments where there will be, Kathrine's one of the most sought after speakers in our country in the Juice Plus Corporation, but not only that, internationally, as a life coach, as a mentor, as an advocate, and we'll be in a big conference, and literally you'll see 10s, 30s, 40s of people that are standing around to meet her, to share a word of gratitude or something that they want to ask her. And I don't know how you do it, but you will look one-on-one into our eyes and give us your full attention and make us feel that we are so valuable. Our presence and our message, our heart. I'm looking at her mom right now. I just want to thank you for raising such an amazing daughter. So being around Kathrine just makes you a better person, and she would describe this talk, over hundreds, if not thousands of talks that she's given, as the pinnacle of her journey. And that's why it's so wonderful to see this room filled with such amazing faces. So in addition to being a wellness coach and a speaker in leadership and personal development, Kathrine's worked with corporations like DirecTV, with the academic institution of Lubbock Christian University. She served recently on the advisory board for the Daniel Plan at Saddleback Church. And the names involved with that, like Dr. Amen, they're all published. But she wasn't concerned, as she never is, about being in the limelight, but more, what can I do to put these minds together, to put the puzzle pieces together, to create something that is greater than the sum of the parts. And so something beautiful is created from that, because she has a heart to serve. And some of you may recognize her from her appearances on Oprah. She is the author and founder of The Ultimate Source, which is a faith-based personal development system designed to help us experience the abundant life that God has for us. And I remember on the day that my father passed, his priest said, he quoted a scripture, and he said, no mind has seen, no ear has heard, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. And I thought that always meant heaven. And Kathrine has taught me that abundance is available, of life is available to us right here. And I've seen her live that out. And this Pure Hope Foundation is what she would consider, she and Michael, the most important work of their lives. And this is established to raise awareness and mobilize action against the sex trafficking industry, which until I got to know Kathrine and hear her, thought something that was far away. I didn't realize this is touching women in our community and the difference that we can make. And I just want to thank Kathrine and Michael for following their hearts, for showing us through their example what love and service can really do. And it's my honor to welcome my dear friend, Kathrine.
Well, let's just think of this as a community fireside chat. After all that introduction, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to go up there or not and live up to that. My family will humble me real quick. They'll be like, oh no, I promise you. There's a whole other side there, right? Like all of us. And there's actually a scripture in Philippians 2:13 that says it is God in us that wills and compels us to do what we're to do. And so I need to say that right away, because I promise you the story you're getting ready to hear, I don't have the capability in my humanness to say okay to say yes to. But when you hear the story, you're going to hear, how do you possibly say no? And what's so great about this is, although sex trafficking is this heavy topic, and it is a very serious topic, you're going to leave here, I believe with all my heart, going, there is a God of miracles out there. And he displays his power among his people still. And that's a scripture, so we know it's true, but we just have to see it. And so I'm going to take you on a journey, because within my story are the lessons about trafficking. And I'll give some very specific 1, 2, 3s. But I really want to tell you a story tonight of my story. And it began really about 21 years ago or so. I had one of those radical days that changes your life forever. Do you guys know? Any of you have one of those kids, grandkids in the room? Anyone have kids? So, no matter how many times you read What to Expect When You're Expecting, right? It does not matter. The day that child comes into your life, everything changes, and it's a beautiful day. But it's the opposite end of the spectrum. There are those days that change your life forever. Those are those days that you or a family member maybe hear the word cancer or heart attack, or it is the last breath of somebody that we love so much. And for me, it was the day I heard the words, Kelly and the baby died last night. And what I was being told is that my 31-year-old friend, who was 9 months pregnant, had had an aortic aneurysm. And we lost her and her baby. 2 days later, I went to her funeral and saw her baby for the first time lying in the casket next to her. She was full-term baby, beautiful. Her name was Sydney. I'd never seen so many men brought to their knees as in those moments. And they did it publicly, but I went home and did it privately. I literally got on my knees and I cried out to a God that I didn't even believe in. And I said, okay, if you're real, you have to prove it. I don't even know what to do with this. And I surrendered my life because I wasn't doing a great job on my own. And I said, I'm going to make a deal with you. I remembered reading as a child, seek and you will find. And I remember making the agreement, okay, I'm going to live expectantly, but you better prove it. I was kind of indignant and a little bit angry. If you've ever had someone die untimely, it makes you angry. And I was real and raw with that anger, but I was also very authentic in reaching out. And I remember, okay, I'm going to live expectantly. And I love to say that God has been a show-off ever since. He is a show-off. I mean, truly, look at a sunrise or a sunset sometime. Look at a little baby's feet. Honestly, every day, look in the mirror. You're a walking miracle. Every single one of us is a walking miracle. The way your eyes see, the way your ears hear, the way your lungs breathe, the way your heart beats is miraculous. And yet every day we tear that apart instead of looking at the beauty of what is. And I remember all of this just kind of flooding through my mind in this moment of, okay, I'm going to live expectantly and I'm going to look for miracles. I'm going to start believing in miracles again, starting with the one in the mirror. That's just what I felt in that moment. And I got up off of my knees and I heard in my heart, pure hope. And I knew immediately that that was my name. My name, Kathrine, means pure, and Nadine means hope. That's my middle name. My name means pure hope. But I heard that as a very sacred thing, and I didn't know what that meant. But what I do know now is that we were all designed from the beginning of time with a purpose in mind. Every one of us was designed from the beginning of time with a purpose in mind. My mother, Jerry, wave mama, happened to name me part of my purpose, right, of what this then looked like. But I remember holding on to that pure hope thing and going, okay, I don't know what that means. I know it's my name, but I think it's sacred and I'm going to hold on to it. And for the next many, many years, God began directing my life. I began following him, and because I'm a life and business strategist, people will say, well, how do you know your passion? How do you know your purpose? I teach goal setting. I teach all those things, and there are some very strategic things to that, but you know what the biggest thing that I could tell all of you is seek his face, and his will and his way will open up before you. It really is that simple. It really is that simple, and I remember that was my first goal every day from the day I got on my knees, and then these things just started happening, and I got all sorts of promotions and accolades and, platform like the Oprah show. And the whole time, my husband, Michael, and I were holding it out like this, going, okay, you did it. What do you want us to do with it? Okay, you did it. What do you want us to do with it? And we just kept going on each day, wondering what that was. And, this is what I love to say is, what do you do when you don't know what to do? Sometimes you don't know what to do. Anyone in that position? I'm really not sure what to do. Well, do what you do know to do, right? And so we just kept going, okay, you did it. What do you want us to do with it? Do what we do know to do. And then one day I was on an airplane. And any of you fly for silence? Anyone? Am I the only one that gets on an airplane and prays no one talks to me? I'm kind of like your iPhone when it comes to energy. You know how you plug in your iPhone and it's 100%? And it works at 100%, and then it goes down to 50%, but it still works at 100%, right? And then it goes down to 1%, but you can still do everything at 1%. You can check Facebook and the stocks and send an email and everything, even though it's at 1% until what? It's not anymore, right? And then it's just done. Well, that's me with people. I love people. People are my life's work. But I plug into 100%, and then I'm around people, and my battery just goes down. And my sweet husband, Michael, watches for the moment I go to zero. He goes, oh, baby, come on. You're not saying anything intelligent anymore. We're getting you out of here. And so that's kind of what my life looks like. I need to be alone to recharge. And so typically when I'm getting ready to leave to go speak or be with an audience, I've been with my family, so I plug in on the plane, get to 100%. And then when I am done with the audience, I'm going to be home, so I plug in on the plane to be 100% for my family. So I get on the airplane, I'm so excited because that whole I won because the seat next to you was empty, that feeling. And so I'm like, oh. And then I do the extra measure. I put on my lap a book, two actually, and earphones. And I'm like, I'm safe. No one's going to talk to me. I'm going to charge up. I was so excited. And that feeling they're getting ready to shut the door? And you're like, okay, no one else is coming down the aisle. I win. It's good. And all of a sudden, I see an arm come through. And I knew immediately the guy was going to be the seat next to me. And sure enough, he sat down, but I was safe, men. I love you for this. You don't just chit-chat on the airplane. There's no small talk. You just get on, get in your seat, and it's all good. So I thought, I'm good. It's a guy. Even though he's there, I'm all good. Tap, tap, tap. I feel a tap on my shoulder. So I do the wonderful, loving, kind thing that Kristen says that I always look face to face with people and make them feel like they're the only person in the world. No, not this time. I'm like this. I just take my earphones, not off. I just set them to the side just a little bit, and I look sideways at him. All of which says, don't talk to me. And I said, And he asked me some random question, and I answered him very quickly and put my earphone back on. Tap, tap, tap. So I do it again. Third time. Tap, tap, tap. And I hear in my heart, talk to him. That's another thing I typically say to people is we don't always know what direction to go in because we're never quiet enough to hear that still small voice directing us. And it was clear. And I kind of always know when it's that because it's not something I typically want to do necessarily. But in the long run, there's usually a great reward. And so I'm like, okay. So I take off the earphones. Well, this guy later tells me that the second he got on the plane and he saw the books in my lap, I had a Bible and a faith-based book on my lap, he said as soon as he saw those, he knew he needed to talk to me. And about an hour into the flight, I am so excited. I mean, I am talking to this guy. He's smart, he's well-traveled, he's charismatic, he is successful, articulate, brilliant, kind, funny. I mean, I am laughing and having the best time. We're disturbing everyone around. You know those annoying people on the plane? And you're like, I'm just trying to get some quiet and you're disturbing me? That was us. And I have to be honest, where's Wendy Bolts? Or I always say Bolts. Sorry, honey, she's been married for forever, Myers. But I was thinking of her because she was single. And I was thinking of my other friends that were single, and I'm like, I am going to set this guy up. This is why I was supposed to talk to him. I'm going to set him up with one of my single girlfriends. They're going to name their children after me, right? We do this. We script it all out in our mind. I'm thinking, this is why I was supposed to talk to him. And sure enough, he says that there was that moment that he wanted me to ask him one question, and I did. I said, so what do you do? And he said, I own the second largest pornography company in the world. And I went, okay, I don't think I'm setting him up with Wendy or any of my other single girlfriends. What is this about? Now, I need to give you a little backstory here. My grandfather was so addicted to pornography that when he passed away, he took a last breath, my grandmother took a breath, and she says, get that stuff out of my house. After 50 years of marriage, that was her main desire after he died. And I watched my father later clean out barrels and barrels of pornography from their house. See, I think something else is why we don't always pursue our passion, or we're a little scared of maybe that big calling on our life, is because we're scared we're not going to know what to say or do. But I am here to tell you, you will know what to say or do. Because in that moment, it was all just there for me. And he told me later, Kathrine, I could not wait to see you squirm the whole rest of the flight. I saw those Christian books on your lap, and I just thought you would be so uncomfortable or so judgmental that it would be entertaining. But instead, you met me with love and grace and curiosity, and I didn't know what to do with you. And so we just had this amazing conversation. And I just asked him questions, and we got just talked and talked and talked. And after a while, I challenged him on a few things. If anyone knows me, you might get that once or twice in your life. But I said to him, okay, so tell me, I'm really curious, does it ever bother you? I'm not talking about right now, because I hear you've justified this. I mean, you should have heard all of the logic that he had to this. And I said, but I'm talking in the middle of the night, when you're just waking up, maybe 3 a.m., does it ever bother you? Because I believe that every man, and men, I love seeing so many of your faces in the room tonight. I said, I believe that every man is supposed to be and is the hero for women. And I'm just wondering if your hero's heart ever wakes up. And he couldn't answer me. He looked out the window. And when he turned back, he started just telling me about his personal life, his wife and his daughter and his divorce and where she lived and where he lived. And I was so interested. And he had told me prior that how they get the girls for this, because I asked him, so how do you get the girls? This is really interesting. He said, oh, it's easy. We send scouts out to malls and high schools. And we tell them, look for girls with daddy issues. And I said, oh. As he told me about his personal life, I said, oh no. So your daughter has daddy issues. Wealthy dad, divorce, lives in 2 separate places, not enough time. The exact scenario he had just described as a target was his daughter. And I will never forget the look on his face. He had never considered until that moment that his daughter could be a target. And we continued to talk, and when we finally left each other, he said to me, Kathrine Lee, I'm going to tell you 2 things. Number one, I don't think I'm ever going to sleep quite the same again. And I said, oh, good. And he laughed and I laughed. We had this great rapport. And then I said to him, or he said to me, can I get your card? Because I think someday my girls may need you. And right then, I knew pure hope. I had carried that sacred name for almost 18 years. And I went, that's what this is for. Isn't it interesting? The very thing that was what I call life-limiting lie of our family lines, right? We all have these things in our family that are passed down generation to generation that limits us. That addiction to pornography and the just pushing down of women was the issue in my family, becomes the very thing that's the ministry. It's such an incredible thing that any pain we've ever been through is for purpose. And so I began to go, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm a life strategist and business strategist. I've worked with this Juice Plus company and other corporations. I don't know anything about the trafficking industry. And so I just held on and I started doing research that we'll talk about in a little while, and I'm going to share with you some of the things that I found out. But meanwhile, as I'm researching this, to be honest with you, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I'm not meant to do this. There's no possibility. I can't even begin to handle this. And then I start to consider everything that has been in my life for the past 20 years, the financial, time freedom, the money, the different aspects of our lives, the training of the brain and the body, and everything that I had been taught. And I started seeing how that is actually healing to this population and to all of us, actually. And I'm like, And then I'm thinking back into the past part of my life when God moved in miraculous ways, and I'm going to share with you this story because it's relevant to how we ended up here now. Years prior to all of this, I was down at the beach. Remember the seek his face and his will and his way will open up before you? I was down at the beach in that posture. I love going down. You know where the entrance of Beach Road is? For those of you that live here, that beach is my little spot. And I just sit and watch the waves and the dolphins and the pelicans, and it's just a very, very personal, spiritual place for me. And all of a sudden I had this vision. I don't know how else to describe it. I've only had it twice in my life, and this was the first time of me sitting on stage talking to Oprah. And it was so vivid, as if I was looking at a memory. Does that make sense? It was like it had happened, but I knew it hadn't. And I have zero desire to be famous. Zero. But I do want to have influence. So this seemed kind of strange to me because the Oprah thing seemed like famous to me. But I remember thinking, okay, God, if that's you, you're going to have to show me and prove it. And 7 years later, I'm at that same place, and I feel in my heart, submit your story. And so I do, and they call me, and I'm on, and they're stayed in touch, and we've had this relationship all these years. And it was actually, ironically, not the first time, but the second time that I was on that it looked just like, exactly like that vision. And in fact, when I first got to the Oprah show the second time, it was 5 years ago, just the day after Easter. And we were airing live as well as filming live. So she typically films live, but then they edit and then they air later. Well, we were on air live. And so when I flew in, I thought I was there to review a book. Because she had sent me a book and asked my opinion, and that's all the conversation we had had. So I thought, well, this isn't the vision either, because it's going to be me, her, and this author. And the vision was just she and I talking. So I fly in and they say, well, we need to take you right over because we're airing live. That was the first I had heard that. I'm like, oh, good gracious, what if I say something really stupid, If I get to that 0%, I'm going to be in big trouble. And we get there, and they said, okay, you'll be here, and Oprah will be there. And I said, well, where is Janine going to be? Janine, what are you talking about? I said, the author of the book. What book? So I tell them about the book, and she's like, this has nothing to do with her. This is just you two. And I'm like, oh, it's the vision, right? And I share that story with you because sometimes we are being prepared for something we don't even realize. And sure enough, here I am all these years later. I have this encounter with this man on the plane. I do this research that I'll share with you in a moment. I found out this huge issue, and I'm like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? What does it look like? I have no clue how to even begin this. And then I get on another airplane. And Michael and I always joke around, I either need to fly a lot more or fly a lot less. We're not quite sure at this moment. But I'm on the airplane, and when they shut the door, another movie kind of played in my mind. And I believe with everything in me, the Oprah thing happened so that when this movie played, I would believe that this could happen. Because, in the perspective of everything else, everybody thinks Oprah's like, or was, when her show was out there, the biggest thing in the world. And, I always say God's the best PR person in the world. I don't know how I got on, but I got on. Well, this time, the movie plays in my head, and it's of a ranch. And it is just as vivid as that Oprah vision was, and it was a place where people, not just people in trafficking, but men and women and families and leaders and pastors would come to be revived. And that then, on top of that, there would be this place where these girls were being fully restored. And that somehow it was going to be this thing that worked all together to integrate the girls back into population where they would have jobs and vocational training and educational training and be able to do this. And I can't describe it except that I journaled it all when it was done. And when the plane landed it was over, and I called my husband. I got off the plane and I said, okay, I'm calling you now because if I don't speak this now, I will never say it again. I need you to hold me accountable. Remember the Oprah thing? This is what just happened. And he says, I'm in. Could we give a hand to a man who says, I'm in? Broad shoulders, baby. Broad shoulders, I always say to him. But here's what's so amazing, is it has been our desire, because of our story of redemption, individually and together, that we would be able to raise up the heroes' hearts of men again. Don't you think we need the heroes' hearts of men to awaken again? And women, we don't get out of it. That we would unite the voices of women again. That we would stop competing and start completing a picture together of what could actually happen. And that is the power of considering this, because see, this issue is so huge that as I did the research and found out what we're really dealing with, it was scary to me, but I continued to walk in faith. So we end up last year, almost exactly at this time, putting our home on the market. And just putting out and saying, you know what, we're going to put our house on the market. And everybody kept saying to us, well, where are you moving? And we were like, I don't know, we feel like Abraham. Go to a land I will show you, you know? We were just like, we just feel like it's time to take a step in faith. And so we got in our motor coach. We decided that we would homeschool, which now we call hardly schooling. Our daughter Hannah, anybody out there? Worst thing ever. But anyway, I love homeschooling. We're just not cut out for it. That's what we found out. But she got a lot of life experience this year. Yeah, the primary teacher quit. We forget it. It's not happening. But the amazing thing is that we thought, you know what? A year from now, which would be now, we're going to start this ministry. So let's take a year off and travel and speak and, you know, go all around. We have a motor coach. We thought we'll just play and have a good time and start to talk about awakening people's desires in their heart. Not talking about pure hope, but telling the story of how to get over fear, get over having a frazzled brain, and getting over failure. How do we do that? Well, these are some of the principles I'm talking to you now, but we were just going into this whole season of let's just play for a year and then see what happens. And while we were out on the road, we started looking at property here and there just in case the house sold. And, you know, we just kind of playing. Priced it really high, you know, kind of that I hope it really doesn't sell thing. And so we go on this trip and I'm telling the story along the way. Just a small segment of Pure Hope in the ranch. I mean, out of an hour talk, I maybe spent less than 5 minutes on how at $500 a month you can live legacy, and how where we are now we could live legacy. And the now was the vision of Pure Hope, this place, this ranch where ecotherapy and art therapy and music therapy and vocational training, educational training, and just, I mean, this incredible vision. And when it was done, everyone was coming up to us, literally putting money in our hands, putting cards in our hands, saying, you know, well, we have horses for your equine therapy. I can build a ropes course. I'm a therapist. I'm a music therapist. I'm an art therapist. All these people, and I'm like, no, we haven't even started. We're playing right now. And people were like wanting to be a part of it. And I don't know why, but that scared me to death. Have you ever been there where something is so huge, you don't know what to do, but you'll kind of do it in private, as long as nobody's looking, because you might fail. Right? And you'll do it just in what you can do, in the size you can do it, so you can control it. Anyone? Am I the only one? Right? And God forbid anybody else know what we're doing or want to be a part of it, because then not only are we letting ourselves down, but we might let them down. And it scared me to death. And I went to Michael and I said to him, forget it. Call the realtor, who happened to be my mother. and I wasn't brave enough to call her. I said, take the house off the market. We're not doing this. And, you know, Michael is an incredible, incredible man. Very quiet, but incredibly profound. And he said to me, well, baby, you're afraid. What do you teach about fear? I'm like, don't use my stuff on me, right? But really what I teach is when we're afraid, you act and you ask. You act against the fear, you do it anyway, and you ask for help. And he said, baby, I think it's time for the big ask. And I knew what he meant by that. It wasn't just asking for help, because the help is what was freaking me out. It was the big ask from God. And I humbly, and I don't recommend this, I think that it's honestly only God's grace that gives us the ability to do what I call a Gideon. If any of you know the story of Gideon, he's a man in history who was asked to do something bigger than himself. And it's a lack of faith, and it's an insult to God if he asks us to do anything, to say, well, will you prove it? So I'm not recommending that, but God's so gracious, and I was so scared that he's also like a father who goes, okay, I'll be gracious to you, because I said humbly, okay, 20 years I've walked with you. You're calling me to do this. I am terrified. If it is you, please confirm it. Please give me a Gideon. And we went on to the next town, and in this tour, and when I speak, I've spoken to millions, if you count the over audiences, thousands of people, but my favorite audience is 24 to 40. It's my sweet spot number, right? Because I get to talk to every person when it's over if they want to talk. It's just the perfect size for me. So the next place we go was actually an add-on to the tour. This woman heard we were coming through College Station, Texas. She threw a few people together. She had no idea what I was talking about. And she said, just show up, I'll just get people there. And sure enough, I walk in and it's that 24 to 40 size. And I'm like, okay, good. It takes kind of the pressure off. This is my favorite sweet spot. And so I tell the talk, and sure enough, I get to the ranch and everybody's passing notes and crying. And I'm like, here we go again. And when it was done, these women in the front row said, will you come over here? I said, sure. So I walked over. And they said, we need to talk to you. We're so sorry we were passing notes. We know that was rude for us to be crying and talking while you were talking. And I went right into teacher mode. Have you ever done that? I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Just whatever it was that touched your heart, make a list, ask for help. I'm right in there with them. And they said, no. You don't understand. And I said, what? And they said, we're all survivors of sex trafficking. We got a day pass to be here today. And the place that we live, in 3 months, our time runs out. And we don't know where we're going to go. We need exactly what you're building. And I right now have chills from my head to my toe. And I'm like, hello, front row fleece girls, right? Because Gideon put out a fleece. He put out a piece of material called a fleece and said to God, test this if it's wet and dry. And he did it twice to God to say, if this is you, you've got to prove that it's you. Have it be wet and the ground be dry. And then when it happened, he went, oh, never mind, right? Could you flip-flop it? Then I'm going to believe it's you. But I believed that second, right? Because what are the chances? The woman had no idea what I was talking about. These girls got a day pass. It took a lot to even get them there. And then I talk about the one solution, not that they needed, but that I needed. And Michael walked in and I said to him, to our last day and our last dime, we are doing this. And we went on to the next place, and it happened to be just a friend's house. If you can picture with me for a moment, Carrie, I'm going to rub it in again. My sister loves horses. These people they raise racehorses and thoroughbreds. So you pull onto the property and there's horses everywhere. And my husband is from Texas, and my daughter, 10-year-old, loves horses. And so we pull up in our motor coach, and he runs off with the husband of the property to go look around the property because he's with another cowboy and he's all excited. And my daughter Hannah hops off and gets on a horse to go off riding, and I'm standing there. And we're in New Mexico. The sun is setting. It's just beautiful. And a husky walks up to me. I happen to love huskies. I have a dog that's part husky I was missing. So I'm petting this dog, and this woman walks up. And I said, is this your dog? And she said, yes. And I said, oh, how do you know Rusty and Joe, the owners of the ranch? And she said, oh, well, I actually know their son, but I'm a survivor of trafficking. And I have a dream to build a place where girls can come and be fully restored. Within 2 minutes of meeting her, she tells me this, and it's the same vision. And it just cracks me up, because if you don't know a personal God yet, this is how fun he is. I mean, I'm serious. He's like, hello, you asked for a Gideon. I gave him 2. I'm going to give you two, right? And I'm like, I cannot believe this. So she and I are like, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. We're doing it. And the woman, again, who invited us there had no idea that I was talking about this. And so we like, okay, she's like, don't say anything to Rusty. tomorrow when you're talking, watch her, look at me, because nobody else knows my past but her, and she's going to look at me right when you say this, and it's going to be hilarious. And sure enough, the next day when I'm talking, I see Rusty look at her and go, we just laugh. And it's just such an incredible thing. And so people will say to me, what are you doing? This is a dark world. A lot of people will say to me, you know what, it's good for you. I don't want to hear about trafficking. Like, it's too ugly, right? Yes, it is too ugly. But what's so cool is watching how God is raising up the armies. For 2 years, he broke my heart over this issue. I sat in a particular chair in my house and cried and cried and cried over these girls. And then I started crying and crying and crying over the workers that are working really hard to rescue these girls, and they're exhausted and they're catastrophically underfunded, and they can't, without them, there's no rescues, but they're exhausted, but they don't have funds, and there's no training. So all of this stuff is going on. And those of you that know me, that have worked with me for years, know that one of my niches and why they brought me in with the Daniel Plan that is, I can see a need and then create strategy around solving that need. That's just the way God wired my brain. And when it's animated by him, because I can plug in and charge up and do great things, but man, when it's animated by him, meaning I plug into him and he animates it, look out. And this is what started to happen. So Michael and I get home, and we end up sitting in our backyard. We're back to home base. We have all these people that want to give money. We have all these things, but our house isn't sold. We didn't find the land. And again, what do you do when you don't know what to do? You do what you do know to do. So we started kind of looking at our history, and I had been to a retreat a couple years during this time before where I really felt my commissioning. It's a long story, miraculous story of how I ended up at a yoga retreat. Hello, I'm not a yoga girl. I ended up going completely out of my comfort zone because I really felt like I was supposed to be at this weekend. I called, they had just gotten a cancellation. I get in and go to this retreat, and it happened to be called a Selah retreat. And I had never even heard that word, even though I had read the Bible plenty, but it basically means to pause and rest and reflect. It's mostly in Psalms. And so I go, and at this place I feel, okay, it's time to start the ministry. And what's so interesting is when I also had the vision of the ranch, I felt one thing about Michael, which is ask him what his dream is for the property. And when I asked him, he said one thing. He said, it would be over 1,000 acres. Do you have any idea how big 1,000 acres is? No, because you live in Southern California, right? We have no perspective. That is huge. It's a picture 1 mile by 2 miles. And he even said, I don't know why I said that. That's really big, but maybe we need a buffer or to be able to pick our neighbors or room for expansion. But that's all that comes to my heart. So we get home, and we're like, well, the house didn't sell. We're going to start this, but what do we do? What do you do when you don't know what to do? So we started doing the Pure Hope ministry in the way that we could from here. And I invited a ministry leader because one of the things we want to do is minister to frontline rescue organizations, both the workers but also pastors and their wives. Because, it's the people that are burned out that are doing good in this world that we need to love on so that more good can be done. And so this woman came over that has an incredible ministry for me to do some business strategy, and we're sitting in our backyard, and she walks in, she goes, what is your house doing on the market? Because everyone knew that our home here in Southern California was going to be the place where I grew old. It's a single-level ranch-style home. I was going to lay my head on that pillow, looking out that window at that willow tree when I was 80 years old, right? Wendy, I bought that house for my friend Wendy Campbell, who's here tonight. And everyone knew that. And so she's like, what is your house doing on the market? And I said, oh, you're going to think we're crazy. So I briefly told her the story, and she said, I have the perfect place. The perfect place. And I said, well, where? Because we were willing to go. I actually thought Montana, Colorado. Michael kept going Texas. Montana, Colorado, Texas. California wasn't an option because of all the ridiculousness of taxes. And, it's very difficult to run nonprofit and to expand and do the things you need to do. So we just felt like it wasn't here. But so anyway, she says, Texas. He's like, what? What? Texas? So we walk over and she's like, I don't know. Anyway, the story is so miraculous, you wouldn't even believe it. We're going to start making t-shirts that say, come on, you can't make this stuff up. Because that's how miraculous the story is. Our scripture verse for our ministry is, you are a God of miracles, you display your power among your people. Because here she is, and she says, no, I'm serious. So she said, my friends go there twice a year, they do this stuff on this ranch, I think they're wanting to sell it. So we go, I don't think so, we didn't see it. And so she calls, they're on the ranch at that very minute. They only go twice a year, they're on the property at that moment. And so we end up going online. The name of the ranch is Selah. The same name of the retreat that I miraculously ended up with, that I felt commissioned to do, that it was time. And as we scrolled down, it was 1,016 acres. Now, would you buy the t-shirt? Come on, you just can't make this stuff up. So we go, and we call the owners, and it takes a couple weeks to connect. We connect, and we saw the price tag and went, oh, that's fine. We hadn't seen it. It was a lot more, and it was kind of the 10-year vision already there. It was the big vision. See, we thought we would buy what was controllable by us, what we could do on our own, remember? In the control. And then we would eventually expand to what the vision was on the airplane. And as we're looking at this property, it's the whole vision right now. But it's got a price tag that, even though we've been blessed, it's beyond what we can do. But we called the owners just because, come on, you can't make that stuff up. At Selah, it's over 1,000 acres. The second we pulled up the website, I started crying. I don't know why. And we called and they said, just come out. I happen to be doing some work at a university there, teaching and training their staff, and they said, just come by. You know, Southern hospitality, it is real. And so we go, and we sit down with the owners, and we tell them our story. And the whole time she is squeezing her husband's arm, and we have no idea why. And I had even mentioned my sweet spot being 24 to 40. She said we built this place based on those numbers. They, 2 years prior, the year prior, at the same time I got the vision for the ranch, they had felt from God, there's more to this land than what you're doing. It was already a pastoral care retreat center. It had a conference center, all this stuff on it. And they were like, okay, well, what? And then their daughter gets a brain tumor. And they said, well, maybe we're supposed to sell it. Maybe it's supposed to be for someone else. They put that ranch on the market within a week or two of when we put our home on the market as a step of faith. And here we're sitting there, but here's the kicker. In that 2-year span, guess what God broke their heart over? Sex trafficking. They had watched every video, every documentary. They're in their 60s, almost 70s. They had no idea. Why? They didn't even put together that it could be related until we were sitting there. And I had told her earlier, that we felt like Abraham, go to a land I will show you. And she said to me, this is it, right? This is it. No, we still have not secured that land. Loren has been there. It is such an amazing place. But we are all walking in faith together that it's going to happen. That this place, we have sold now our home. We are moving in how many days now, Realtor, Mother? Real soon, too soon, my mom says. Literally, I was packing all the way till I showered to come here. Because a week from Monday, like in 12, 14 days, something like that, we're moving. And I'm traveling 7 days out of that time. But what's amazing is that when there is an evil happening in this world, and God starts to compel the hearts of people, when he starts to raise up the heroes' hearts of men, and he starts to use the voices of women to unite and raise up and unite the voices of women again, unbelievable things can happen. Miraculous things can happen. And so we literally are packing up our house. On the 21st, we're pulling out. We're driving to, I don't know. We're going to live in that little motor coach and put our stuff in storage. We're selling most everything. And we are saying, what's next? The owners have not relisted the property. They're taking a huge leap of faith because their daughter has a brain tumor. And they're saying, look, we'll sell you, if you can buy just this segment of the property, then the rest of it will come. We're not even worried about the rest. But if just this part, so we know that we're going to be okay and our daughter is going to be okay. I mean, you guys, that centerpiece of the property, Loren's been there, then the rest of the property doesn't even count. That's them saying, have the whole thing if you can just do this. That we will walk in faith with you. Miraculous things happen when we decide to seek God's face. And this has been a 20-year journey. And I don't know, Michael, if you're over here, but I want to show a couple slides. I want to show you some of the things that I've learned, but I want to tell you the most important part of this is that we serve a God big enough to overcome this evil and this atrocity. It's why I tell the story first, is because if I just tell you about trafficking, you know what you'll do? You'll leave here paralyzed and depressed and scared. That's what you'll do. I promise you, that's why it's pure hope. I want to tell you just enough to mobilize you to action, but not to paralyze you in fear. I am not giving any more ground to the enemy that has this ground. So I'm not going to tell you, I mean, there's all sorts of video out there that says really scary, graphic things, and the victims are being re-victimized, telling their stories. No more. We can tell their stories in ways that don't victimize and re-victimize them or you again. But you do need to be aware so that you know how to unite your voices and raise up the heroes' hearts of men. So Michael, if you want to share, go ahead. These are just some stats that I want to share with you so you're aware, so we can mobilize together to get rid of this. Sex trafficking and trafficking, I want to say, because it's also human trafficking. Okay, so that means that people are coerced into working for unfair or no wages. But sex trafficking is wrapped up into that. It's the second largest criminal industry in our country. Not in the world. I want you to hear that. Is that surprising to any of you? Why are we not talking about this? If it is the second largest criminal industry in our country, and there's no ribbon for it, right? There's no say no to campaign in schools for it. And it's the second largest, go ahead, Michael, and the fastest growing. I have spent time at the FBI and Homeland Security, and you know what they say? Oh yeah, it's going to surpass drug trafficking. We expect it to. I've heard everywhere from 2 to 10 years. Most say 2 to 5. Why? Because the demand is higher, and a drug can be sold once, but a girl can be sold over and over and over again. Now, I want you to understand something. It's boys too, but you're going to hear me referencing women because that's what so far we've been called to. But it is both genders here. So this is going to surpass number 1, but nothing's being done. What is wrong with that picture? Go ahead. The demand is huge because of pornography. Isn't that interesting? The very thing that on the airplane, I didn't know that. I just was like, okay, porn, trafficking. I didn't know. This is what they say in this issue. Pornography is the rocket fuel to sex trafficking. It is creating this insane demand because just like drugs, we talked about that earlier, just like drugs, pornography is addictive. And it is extremely accessible. It's one click away from any one of us in this room. And it just taps into a part of your brain that immediately you're addicted. You're just connected. You're intrigued at least. Unless you have a moral barrier or a reason to fight against it, your brain just goes. It's just the animalistic part of your brain that taps into it that fast. But here's what kills me. I talk to men a lot about this. It immediately puts a shame shackle on you. So you watch it, you want it, it's interesting, it's intriguing, it's fulfilling. Click, there's the shame shackle. And there's the addiction. And then you go back. And what happens in the brain is you're more addicted, so you need more. And unfortunately, what it's leading to is violent pornography, child pornography, then somebody wants a person. And a lot of the drug lords now are saying, forget drugs. Let's put a bounty on a girl. And we'll get, you know how they usually get a young guy to do the drug trafficking for them? That's what they're doing now with the boys. They go get that girl, and you guys, a pinnacle, blonde hair, blue-eyed girl is $250,000 to be able to get if you bring a girl in. There's measures to what, if you get this girl, you'll get that much money. There's school online of how to do all this. And right now, I could take you to a website, and it is happening within a 1 mile radius. I could pull up a girl and have her here within 2 minutes. And the average age, go ahead, Michael. Well, the ease is because of the internet. And I'm going to talk about, they prey on insecurity and isolation. Okay, so insecurity is look for girls with daddy issues. And I don't mean that because it's not just daddy issues. It's any girl that feels insecure about herself. And they put up fake profiles, and they make friends. It could be a boy or another girl. It says you're so cute, and then you're side chatting on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. And then they get you isolated to one conversation, and then it's, well, don't tell your parents, because you know those parents are stupid. They're going to think this is something, and you know it's not, because we're friends. Again, with Homeland Security, the guy pulls up a profile. He's got a totally benign girl profile. The average age is 13 that they're targeting, so 12 to 14 is exactly what they want. And then they will say, hey, meet me at the park, but don't tell your parents. Isolation. And they're preying on any kind of insecurity that they can get into. Here's a test. This is how they teach these boys. And you guys, please, please, please tell my niece that's sitting there. You tell your friends. You guys tell the girls and kids in your life. This is how they test. This is what the guys, the predators, are telling the people that are recruiting for them. They say, go to the mall or get online, compliment a girl. Now here's the kicker. It's this simple to protect your family. If the girl pushes the compliment away, and if she's in person, if she looks down, keep pursuing her. But if she squares her shoulders and says thank you and keeps walking, leave her alone. Something that simple. Why isn't this being taught in school? You guys, this can happen to any one of our children or grandchildren now. This isn't just what it used to be where a girl would run away. I mean, have you guys remember? I was going to run away once, any of you? I mean, I came from a family that was just fine. But now the predators are out there and they watch and they wait, and within 48 hours they will be approached by someone that is preying on this issue because it's that big now. So the insecurity and isolation is huge. We need to tell our girls, I see you. My precious little niece, Gracie, they all know her. Gracie's 5. She's almost, 6 now. She's got blonde curly hair, total surfer, grommet. You guys know what I'm talking about, San Clemente kid. We were at San Clemente High School playing tennis one day. And she figured out Daddy was in the gym playing basketball. And she is trying to figure out, can I go see Daddy? No, Daddy's playing basketball. We're playing. So finally she goes, I have to go to the bathroom. Gracie's smart. Guess where the bathroom is? In the gym where her daddy is. So we go up and we walk in, and she stands there, and this is what she says. Can we just stand here until he sees me? I thought, that's the heart of every girl. They just want to be seen. That's the heart of every woman. We don't ever outgrow that. You know the little girl that twirls? That's who we are, and they're preying on that issue. But if we mobilize and strategize as strong as they do, that's why at the ranch we're going to have women's retreats and mother-daughter retreats and father and son retreats to teach the boys how to raise up the heroes' hearts and to teach the girls how to value themselves. Because then this won't be an issue. We can keep our families safe. Low arrests and prosecution is rampant because the pimps have the girls do all the dirty work. So they get arrested for everything. And they are victims. And I want to make really clear that child trafficking is under 18, but every woman over 18 was violated and had her trust broken, usually by a man in her life, before the age of 18, and then her emotional, psychological, and usually spiritual life is stunted at that age. So it doesn't matter if she's over 18. No little girl grows up and says, I want to be a prostitute. That's no one's dream. They're all victims. And it's really important that we understand this, including in the realm of these prosecutions. So that's a legal part that eventually Pure Hope may step into. We've got some amazing connections there. But we have to know that if you see something out there, to vote on it, to have higher issues for the people that are purchasing, but also for the pimps and those people. So this is a big issue. Go ahead, honey. Rescue organizations, this is the other issue. A lot of people will say to me, well, that's it. Let's go in. We're just going to bust in and we're going to rescue everybody. Right? You know why that doesn't happen? There's nowhere to put anybody. There aren't enough homes. There are more animal shelters by far in this world than places for these girls to go if they were rescued. And once they get there, there's no funding to keep them going. And once they're going, there's not enough workers to work it, and none of them are trained because there is very, very, very little training out there. I was just on the phone with the girl that wrote the first curriculum for Harvard, and they have 1 semester training on it. But nobody's teaching how to deal with this psychological warfare. But what's so cool is for 20 years, God has connected me with the people that can fight this issue. When I look back over the 20 years, the people and connections that he put me in touch with in our personal development program and all the different things, the Army's there. We're just mobilizing them and putting them together. It's an incredible thing. But we have got to raise funds for those frontline rescue organizations. And when I say that, those are the people that are going out on the street, building relationships with the girls because they're terrified to leave. They have been psychologically battered to the point where they think that's their family. They think they have nowhere to go. The shame shackles are just as strong on them as they are on men. And so they don't feel like they have any place to go. So it takes a long time to build rapport and courage to leave. A lot of them, their families have been threatened with, fine, if you leave, but then I'll go kill your family because of the way they do this now. They go right up and meet the parents part of the time. So then they've taken them out on a couple of dates. It's called a romance pimp. And that person knows their family, and so they threaten that. I mean, it's insidious. But we can mobilize against it too. And so we have to have these rescue organizations funded and revived and restored and get more people in there, which we're all about that training. There's not enough housing, no places for the rescue to go. The rescues are few, they're tired, and they're ill-equipped because nobody's trained them. They're just people with huge hearts, but they really don't know what to do, and they're tired. And then finally, 80% that are rescued will go back. It's not a good stat. But you want to know why? There's not enough time and funds. So that's where Pure Hope comes in, because we want to help the frontline rescue organizations revive and equip the frontline workers, educate more people so that less of this is happening and those that are there can be rescued. And we want to build what's called a restoration home to build the vocational educational training, help them heal emotionally, physically with the music therapy, art therapy, equine therapy, ropes courses. I mean, it just could go on and on. My precious Hannah, my daughter, has her total own brainchild was Pets with a Purpose. Do you have any idea how powerful it is for a girl to care for an animal? To connect with something that is breathing with a heartbeat and connect and bond. That's why there's therapy dogs and animals. So Hannah wants to take the least of these animals that are in kill shelters and any kind of animal. She's like, guinea pigs, it doesn't matter, and she's right. At 10 years old, she knows what heals the brain and what creates connection again. And her little logo that you'll see over there on the table, she designed all on her own. And any funds that are raised specifically for Pets with a Purpose will go towards those kennels, will go towards creating the rescues, all of those things. It's an amazing thing when people rise up and do something. Even a 10-year-old can do that. So what is the solution? Well, we believe Pure Hope in connection with other organizations for collaboration, because here's the sad thing. Most of them compete with each other. They don't like each other. That's one of the things I found out. You know why? Because they're scared if we work together, you'll steal my people that are funding me. That's why we at Pure Hope, for every dollar that we raise, we're giving 20% back out, even though we're our own nonprofit organization. And everybody says, well, you should just raise money for yourself. No, I don't believe in scarcity mentality. We believe that we can give back to the frontline rescue organizations and still have enough for us. And so we have to be able to do that. It is good people being mobilized to do something that's going to make a difference. Go ahead. We're going to educate people, kids, families, teachers. We have all sorts of curriculum that we're mobilizing with what's called a community outreach ambassador. So any of you that go, you know what, if I had the curriculum where I had my talking points and a video and a closing point, we're going to educate you. on how you can go out and talk to your sphere of influence, right? A church, a community, whatever. So we're going to educate around safety. Internet, the isolation piece, talk to people about that complement test. Just what if all of you left here going, you know what? Every girl from the age of 9 to 25, I'm going to tell that to. What if it was just that? What if it was don't trust that person on Facebook? It doesn't matter what their profile looks like. What if it was don't put what school you go to? Because that's where they're going to go hang out. Here's something interesting. When I was meeting with Homeland Security, I was getting ready to do 2 events, one for a PTA, this is in Texas, and one for a men's group. And the woman that came with me was our community outreach ambassador in Dallas, and she said, the people in my wealthy community don't think this could touch them. And he goes, oh really? Click, 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 and he pulled up a website, and he goes, look how many entries, hundreds, thousands, in a 1 mile radius of where she lives. And not one girl looked over 18. And the typical man that is purchasing her, it's so easy because she'll come to the office now. Because it's internet, click, 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 you can have a profile, it's up, it's gone, you're a ghost. And it's usually a middle class or upper middle class man, white, between the ages of 35 and 50. Is that right? So Michael and our executive director were like, ugh, that's like a hit in the gut, like that's my contemporaries, that's not okay. But there's a whole lot of good men that if their voices were rising up, it's called positive peer pressure, right? Have you guys ever seen remember the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge? That was positive peer pressure. It was just everybody going, I want to be a part of something. Nobody knows the original guy's pain. Very few people. Did all of you participate in the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge? Or did you see it online? Yeah, everybody knows it. Yeah, I saw it. May not have dumped ice water on my head, but I know what it is. But most people don't know the guy's story that started it. It was his pain that started it. And most people, even less than that, know that the whole reason you poured the ice over your head was for just the second you would feel the feeling of what it might feel like to have ALS. But everybody forgot the pain and the ugliness to be a part of something powerful and good. And that's what we want to do with this, is mobilize that positive thing by education. Go ahead. We want to raise those funds for the front lines that I talked about. We want to encourage and educate and equip those rescuers because they're flying by the seat of their pants. We're working with survivors to hear language and how do we talk and what's relevant. Instead of trying to be the PhD here, let's talk to the girl that's been through it and let her give us language, right? Because there's all these experts trying to talk down and it doesn't work. And I'm not saying there's some amazing programs in here. My heart, there's a woman in our community, Kim Yim, who's a good friend of Cindy's, who's been a just amazing advocate for this issue for years in San Clemente. And I can't wait to meet her and decide how when an army is mobilized together, how we can collaborate and make an even bigger difference together. And then we want to build those restorative care homes. Go ahead. So everybody can do something. This is the action steps for you tonight with Pure Hope. And this is what I say, be a part of the miracle. I mean, come on, get the t-shirt that says, come on, we can't make this stuff up because you being a part of it, you're going to be a witness to it. And what we have seen is it starts happening for you too. People start going, okay, call me, you're not going to believe what just happened. Get in the wave of what's God. It's not what I'm doing. You need to get that really clearly. We will fail you every time. We are human beings, but we are willing to be an instrument in God's hands. And if you'll join us, these are just some small things you can do. Sounds funny, but you can worship and you can pray. In the Bible, very often when they went out against an enemy force that was much bigger than them, the first thing they did was send out the worshipers. Seems totally irrational, but when God inhabits worship, it makes total sense to me. So what if every morning you just got up and you went, you know what? I'm going to put on some music and I'm going to sing in the shower. Some of you don't want to sing in front of other people. Hello, like me. But if you said, you know what? I'm just singing on behalf of this issue. I'm going to usher God right into this whole thing through my worship. And maybe you're a prayer person. Maybe you want to offer up a prayer. You can go to purehopefoundation.com and click on do something. And the first thing there says click, yes, I will pray. And you can put anything you want. There's a whole field there where you can type anything you want to us. And we have somebody that, people are saying, well, I've got this background or that background. I can help this way, that way. Whatever you want, you can put there. Go ahead. You can like our Facebook page. That sounds weird. I think it's the strangest thing, but honestly, when we go to get grants, you know one of the questions they ask? How many people like your Facebook page? Isn't it crazy that we're to that point? And ironically, that's the very tool that the predators are using. So could we please unite on behalf and mobilize on behalf to show a presence against this? And what's so cool for you is you're going to know, yes, you might see a few things that might be a little disturbing, but you're going to see a lot more of what is exciting. We're only going to share enough to keep you mobilized to do something, but we're going to share a whole lot more on that positive peer pressure that you get to be a part of the miracle. The other thing you can do is share our Facebook page, because that spreading makes a huge difference. You can be a community outreach ambassador. Ironically, it's also COA. You guys are wearing that. We have this term, community outreach ambassador, and this talk is one of the miracles. You need to hear that. When we left Texas from our board meeting, we left, and my charge was to do a community outreach ambassadors meeting and a public event. And then our house sold. And I said, well, guys, I called and I said, I'm off the hook for that commitment because I didn't know I would be packing. So unless God makes it abundantly clear and all I have to do is show up, then I'm not doing an event. Just a few days later, a precious friend of mine boxered me about a community. She said, I have a group of women that want to do something. That's the community outreach ambassadors. And they just came over and hung out in my backyard. And then Jason allowed me the privilege to speak so that he and his beautiful wife Liz could have a weekend because he knows part of my heart is for pastors and their wives to be restored and revived so they can continue to do the hard frontline work that they do. And he called me up and said, hey, would you like to speak? I'd love a weekend off with my family. I said, great, I spoke. And then these precious people at COA came up and said, would you share? We'll do everything, just show up. Come on. You can't make this stuff up. Buy the t-shirt. You don't have it yet, but one day you'll want to buy the t-shirt. We also have something called a PEP squad. That's a prayer and encouragement partner. One of the things that we found with our frontline rescue organizations, we just had 14 of them out to this ranch in Texas because we're acting like we already own it and we're using it as if we own it. And so we brought 14 people out. Those bracelets that are back there, that company, she underwrites those retreats so that it doesn't take money out of our building fund. So every bracelet you buy, every necklace you buy, they get $8 or so. And then she brought us a check for like $3,000 or $4,000 so that these 14 rescue organizations could come, and they came in like this. I mean, these are the people that are seeing the worst, hearing the worst, dealing with the worst, and they were dragging in, and a lot of them didn't like each other. And in 24 hours of loving on them, telling them we see them, that we care about them too, not just the girls, but them, because without them there are no girls, they walked out high-fiving each other, talking about collaboration, like I can do this for another 5 years. Well, no, can we come back next year? You know, I mean, they were so excited. But what we saw is they need encouragement. They just need somebody to say, wow, that must be hard. Send them a little gift. I mean, I'm talking a 10-cent little card to say, hey, I'm praying for you, and we'll teach you what that looks like. We're not just going to hook you up. We're going to tell you how serious it is. We're going to tell you that it's an important work, and this is what it would look like, and we're going to match you with somebody that fits who you are. But if that's something that goes, I can do that, then join that. We're going to be teaching and training people what that looks like and matching you up with the right ministry and person within that ministry to pray for. And finally, you can give. You know, one of the things that Michael and I realized is that money is simply a force to do good with. Like I said, we kept saying, okay, you did it, what do we do with it? You did it, what do we do with it? And trust me, I'm not expecting you to sell your house. Okay, you do not have to sell your house. You might give $1. You might buy a bracelet. But one of the things that, if you can switch it, babe, and I'm going to close with this story, our kind of grassroots fundraising campaign, you could get 10 of your friends together. You could do it yourself, you could get 10 friends, or you could get 100 friends. And this is what it is. Remember the girls that I met in the front row? My front row fleece girls? There was a moment that broke my heart. After talking to them, you know what they said to me? They're sobbing. And they said, out of every horrific thing that happened to us day after day, the worst thing was thinking no one cared. And the fact that you have no connection to this issue, but you are doing something, that you care about us. We know we're going to be okay even though your ranch won't be ready for us in 3 months. But I have never forgotten. You guys, it is not acceptable that there are girls out there right now being raped for profit. It's not okay. One of the ministries we work with is called AIM, and they're actually in Cambodia. He has a tattoo on his arm that says 22. And I said, what's that about? He said, I had a girl that called me, and we told her we'd be there to rescue her. But it took us 22 days to mobilize the action to get to her. And when we got there, there was a log of what had happened to her. And 198 times she was raped for profit in those 22 days. He said, once, one girl is too many, and one time is too much. We want to welcome these people home. We want to say, there are people out there that will take an evening and be here and hear the story of a miraculous God that will move, but he wants us to be part of that movement. And this 1,000 Welcomes campaign is so incredible, and it started with a woman who heard me speak before we were ever raising funds. And 2 weeks later, she Facebooked me and said, hey, I heard you speak, and I really wanted to give you, and she showed me these text threads. You know, she had screenshotted the things between, the talk between her husband, and she said, I'm at an event, a woman's talking about trafficking. I'd like to give her some money. He said, go ahead. She said, how much? He said, whatever you think. And she told me he didn't know I was thinking $1,000. So she went to get her checkbook, and she had no checkbook. And so she said, I left defeated. I gave what money I had in my pocket. And I didn't ask for any money, by the way, at this event. It was a women's empowerment event. I wasn't raising funds. She said, I gave the money I had, but I couldn't help thinking, why would God put that on my heart? But I didn't have my checkbook to give you the money. And then my husband went to work, and he came home with a card from these people, and it said on the outside, God says you'll know what to do with this. And I opened it up, and there was $1,000 in the card. And she said, so here's your $1,000. So I had held on to that 1,000, and that 1,000 kept happening. I was at an event here, doing an event, didn't ask for any money. This woman walked up. She had never been to an event, had never heard me speak before. She walked up and she said, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to give you this much money. It was $1,000. I can tell you over and over. And so one day, this 1,000 kept happening. 1,000 thousands is 1,000,000. And I thought, wow, what if we had 1,000 people, 1,000 organizations, over and over? We would have the funds to do everything we would need to do. And somebody may not have $1,000, but maybe you have 10 friends that can each give 100. Maybe you only have 100 friends that can give 10. But what's so cool is when these girls come home, there's going to be a gate that says 1,000 welcomes. You know why? Because I was talking to a friend about a snake in Texas. That sounds crazy. But I was walking in Texas, and I called the one friend. I'm like, oh my God, I just was walking on the path, and I turned around, and there was this huge snake. Can you believe I'm moving there? But anyway, and so I called her, and I said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. And she says, oh my gosh. Now, she knows nothing about this 1,000 that's happening, these thousands. All at this point I'm seeing is that 1,000 keeps happening. And she walks in. I mean, I call her, and I tell her this, and she says, hey, did I ever tell you she knows Mark Burnett and Roma Downing? You know who they are. They do the Bible movie and all that. So she said, did I ever tell you when I went to their house, they were telling me the story about, and this has been shared publicly since, that at the day they were doing the crucifixion scene, they had to call in a handler of snakes because there were 30 snakes at the bottom of the cross the morning that they were going to film that. So, you know, we were just talking about snakes. And I go, oh, and all of a sudden she says, hey, did I ever show you a picture of their gate? It's so cute. When you walk into their house, I said, no. So she shoots me this picture. And it's got a little gate with cobblestones. And then there's a little plaque that says something in Irish. And I said, what is it? Say it loud. There you go. That's what it says. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she said, she told me 1,000 welcomes. And here it went. There it is. These girls, these women are going to come home. There's going to be a gate that has that on it. And on the walkway, everyone, every organization, every person, every family that gives 1,000, their name is going to be in those cobblestones. Welcome home from this family. Welcome home from this company. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. Because they need to know someone cares. So I just want to close by thanking you for being here tonight. Here's what's amazing to me. There are friends in this room that have known me for 20 plus years that I had no idea were coming. There are friends that are insanely busy because of the peak time in their businesses that they showed up tonight. My family is here. My dearest friends who have known me since I was, 18 years old are here. I need this. And you just need to know, I need this. I need you guys to show up. I need you to do whatever you can do. There is no pressure because I know that you're going to be mobilized to do whatever it is, whether it's a conversation, a connection, or a full commitment. You came here tonight to do what you were meant to do, which was to encourage me as we step out in this incredible adventure with the God of miracles who still displays his power among his people. Thank you guys for being here tonight.